Hello, my name is Luke Parlin, and this is a brief demo of my Insurgency UI redesign. I created this prototype as a project for my User Experience Design module at Kingston University. Before I begin talking about my design, I want to quickly give credit to NWI for creating all the assets you see in this design. I ripped a number of assets directly from the game's files, which has kept my prototype consistent with existing Insurgency UI, while also allowing me to rearrange things and hopefully improve on a couple of NWI's ideas. Let's take a look at the Insurgency main menu as you'd see it if you launch the game from Steam right now. I've color-coded it here so it's a little bit easier to understand, but you'll notice initially in red, you've got news front and center. To the left in yellow, the friends list, party chat, and party system in general. In the top left, you've got a collection of stats, rankings. All the way in the top right, in blue, you've got settings, community, quit, etc. And then probably the most important element is in green. Solo, cooperative, multiplayer, server browser. That's the heart of Insurgency. That's how you actually get into the game. Switching back to my design, you'll see I've taken that most important element and really put it front and center. I've moved news up to the top menu bar, and if you click it, you'll see it launches in a separate panel. When I was doing my user research, I discovered that not a lot of players are interested in reading their Insurgency news in-game. A number of players are interested in Insurgency news, but they typically get it from social media before they've launched the game itself. It is important to have some news in the game, however, and the Steam community does a great job at syndicating Insurgency news from across the web, and I think it's a sufficient replacement for NWI's news panel in their design. Community also remains at the top. If you open it, you have access to the Steam community, Insurgency YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, and my favorite, the roadmap, which chronicles NWI's development efforts and shows what they're working on in the future. The community is also a great resource for guides, reviews, concept art if you want to see some funny GIFs. Also, mods live on the top menu. NWI had a few more sections to their mod panel, but I think the Steam Workshop is sufficient. They'd included the ability to upload mod files from within the game, which I think is probably a good idea for somebody, but when the modders I talked to explained that they upload their mods through the Steam Workshop itself and would never launch the game before actually uploading a mod. So I think just having the Steam Workshop here is sufficient. Settings is in the same place it used to be, and of course the quit button won't work because we're in an HTML demo right now. This isn't actually the Insurgency client. To the left, you'll see some familiar things. Stats remain there, both for co-op and PvP. I've added a fourth stat, playtime, to the initial objectives, kills, death, shots, munitions. I think playtime is an interesting stat to have, especially when you split it across play modes. New players like seeing that number go up, and veteran players like bragging about it. In the top left, I've got a link to your Steam profile. And this is actually really important because if we were in-game right now, that would open in the Steam overlay. The Steam overlay is built into Insurgency and contains a lot of useful info. Among other things, your achievements, featured in the bottom left here. But most important is the friends list. You'll notice, if you look at NWI's original design, that the friends list and chat, etc. occupy a lot of space on the main screen. And the friends list is really important. Insurgency is a social game, so you're going to want to be playing with friends. Why then have I removed the friends list? Well, the friends list is always just a touch of a button away in the Steam overlay, and the functionality of Steam's friend list, I think, is a little better than NWI's. Furthermore, in a game like Insurgency, which has a smaller community, logging into the game and seeing all your friends playing other games and not Insurgency, I think can be a little bit disheartening for new players. In a popular game like Counter-Strike Global Offensive with 2 million players, you want to have your friends list on the main menu, because then you can see all your friends and what matches they're playing. But for Insurgency, I think it's sufficient to have it in the overlay. It's also freed up a lot of space for me to add a couple other elements, like favorite weapon and accuracy stats for both teams. This space could be used to add any number of stats. and I think provides really flexible opportunity to improve the design. In addition to the existing level, which is in the current Insurgency design, I've added this rank icon. NWI have promised to add ranked competitive matchmaking in the future, and I wanted to take that decision into account in my design. Level is a stat which progresses the more you play. You can grind it out, and that's really good for casual players. The more you play, the higher it gets. But for competitive players, they want to know how they stack up against other members of the community, and that's why we've got rank. Before we get into the main three elements of my UI, training, cooperative, and multiplayer, the paths to actually playing the game, I want to take a look at those same paths in NWI's design. On screen now is the game creation functionality from the original solo menu in the existing Insurgency client. Now, this menu looks nice. It's got a pretty picture and some information. And again, I've color-coded it so we can break it down. In red, you've got your map playlist. In green, you've got your game modes, sort of. And then in blue, you've got descriptions of, well, the game mode and what your objectives are. Now, I've taken a look at this design and identified some issues. Not only is there a lot of screen space wasted on things which don't really tell you that much, but there's very little space dedicated to choosing your map. A grand total of 3.5 maps are displayed on screen out of 32 maps in the list. I thought I could improve on that design, and I'll show you what I've come up with. I'm going to first click or hover over the training figure, and you'll see that this create game option pops up. So if I create the game, here you'll see initially we're presented with the option of playing the tutorial. A lot of new players in Insurgency aren't even aware of the tutorial, at least that's what my research has found. And so I thought having training front and center is important. There are a lot of mechanics in Insurgency, and people want to play the tutorial. So if we click this Add to Playlist button, you'll see immediately the tutorial appears at the bottom of the screen. And I could add it a bunch more times if you wanted to play the tutorial more than once. I'm not sure why you would. Perhaps to grind achievements. But let's look at what else is here. So in addition to the tutorial game mode, you've got this exploration game mode. Now, training isn't just for new players. It's also for veterans. I know a lot of competitive players who like to load up all the maps in the game and just run around discovering new routes, interesting vantage points to take shots from. So using my UI, you're able to access any map in the game, day or night, and add it to the queue in exploration mode. So here's Uprising, I think probably my favorite map. I'll switch it to night mode and add it to the playlist. And now you can see that after the tutorial, I can play Uprising with a little night icon in exploration mode. Let's add a few others. I'll say Market Day, Heights Night, Ponge, and there you have it. I've created a playlist of games. I might not even want to play the tutorial, so I'll remove that from my list. Of course, when you're done, you can always clear the playlist, or of course, begin the game if we were in the client. However, we're in a demo, so I'll leave that alone. Moving on from training, you can also create cooperative and multiplayer games. This is a big improvement over the existing Insurgency UI. As it stands now, to create a multiplayer game, you usually have to use the console to invite friends or type in commands manually. Here you'll see I've opened up the Create Cooperative Game panel, and it's actually very, very similar to the training panel. That's intentional. I want it to feel familiar to players, so let's create a cooperative game. My favorite cooperative mode is Survival, so if I click Survival, I can then choose a map. I'll go with Sinjar. Sinjar Night is a really good survival map, so I'll add that to the playlist. And then maybe Ministry Night, Heights Day, District Day, and already you can see I've got a good playlist. But let's say I don't only want to play survival. Let me remove some of these games. I can add Hunt to the list. Ponge Hunt is fairly popular. Or Conquer. People love playing Conquer on Candigal. You can see the interface here is exactly the same as it was for creating a training mission. However, it's been expanded to co-op. And the same, in fact, exists for PvP multiplayer. If I mouse over the multiplayer figures, I can create a multiplayer game as well. Same as before, firefight, push, strike, skirmish, replace, hunt, checkpoint, etc. But the interface is still the same. Let's create an ambush map on Market. That's a popular ambush scenario. We can then go to Ponge push or Sinjar push. That one's super popular. Get some District Firefight. That one's popular on the competitive scene. Station, really good map. Change it to night mode for variety. I think this UI is fairly intuitive and provides the player with just about everything they need. The ability to switch between day and night, to preview all the maps, and to create playlists. I think it makes a lot better use of screen space than the old design did, which I'll show on screen once more. As you can see, I've retained the wonderful big images that NWI has provided, but almost every area of the screen is directly useful now. The final element of my design I want to talk about is the server browser. The existing server browser in Insurgency has one major flaw. I'll put it on screen right now so you can see. Most players want to filter their servers in one of two ways, either by game mode, which you can do in the existing UI, or by map. Sadly, it's impossible to filter servers by map without launching a server browser. Now, you can launch the server browser, but the UI is a little outmoded, and it has problems of its own, such as, well, not being able to filter by gameplay mode except by searching. So I've completely redesigned the server browsing interface to make it a little more intuitive. Let's switch back to my view. Now, if I want to browse multiplayer servers, I click Join, and actually you'll see it's fairly similar, at least visually. I've given more screen space to the actual list of servers, and all these servers, by the way, were taken from from the actual game, if you see any funny names. And of course, this functions as you would expect. You can sort alphabetically, sort by game mode, sort by map. But let's say we want to apply a filter. We can go ahead and refresh the server list to get the latest, most up-to-date versions. And then we can click, I don't know, let's play push. Lots of push servers today. Let's see which one's the most populated. The Jedi Council and Never Surrender are full, but Lion's Den has a slot, and they're playing Embassy. But I only want to play Ponge. If I click Ponge, I can see all the servers that are on the map Ponge, but also playing Push. And I can switch to Ambush. Nobody's playing Ponge Ambush. Firefight. Nobody's playing Ponge Firefight. Somebody's got to be playing Ponge Skirmish. Strike. Nope. No strike, but there's one server with no players. Let's switch to Ministry and Firefight. Surely people, there we go. Ministry Firefight has some players on it. I like the server selection interface because it's actually very similar to the game creation interface. You've got the same two-column display for the in-game maps, and then also the same functionality where you can select modes. I'll go ahead and reset the filter so we can see everything. I wanted to keep the UI consistent so it would be intuitive for new players, but also expand the possibilities and hopefully create a better user experience for hardcore users, competitive players, casual players, social players. I'm very pleased with my Insurgency UI redesign. It was created in Axure and is purely HTML. If you are interested in hearing more about it, you can contact me via YouTube or read my design report, which I will link in the description. The design report contains more in-depth justifications for most of my design choices, but might be a little dry to a non-academic viewer. Thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Cheers.